everybody, and very welcome to the 21st episode of our discussions on the brain, which has been brought to you by the Togetherness Media, Los Angeles. I've been fortunate to be talking to you about the miraculous, extraordinary brain and how the brain functions over the past episodes during the course of discussions that we have had, either concerning the normal function of the brain and how it works when the brain function is not properly well and we're facing neuropathology. So we've been discussing about that, and if you recall from the earlier episodes, just a couple of episodes back, we started to touch on a key umbrella term in the whole neuroscience and cognitive studies perspectives, and that was neuroplasticity. We kind of discussed about the implications and importance and different types of neuroplasticity and how this is going to happen across our lifespan. And today we're supposed to just bring up some further examples about the implications of neuroplasticity as the neurophysiological and neurofunctional modification of the brain circuitries, both structurally and functionally. But before moving forward, I just wanted to share with you a paradigm regarding the overall structure of the brain, not only from the systemic level, but all the way down to the neural networks and neural circuits and the synapses. So we have the combination of synapses that they are forming like a series or a bunch of neural meshworks, all right? So we have the projections, and those projections are being extended, they are forming new connections, right? So the paradigm or the model I just wanted to share with you here is called NGBA, and that stands for neuron, gene, bit, and atom. So why I'm saying that? Because the four key elements that are there in the neural system are composed of any of these four parts, and they are just recompiled to form the functional unit in the brain. So in each of the functional unit of the brain, what we have is the neuron, the first thing. Secondly, we have the genetic material within the neuron it's embedded into nucleus of that neuron in the cell body, okay? And then we have the bit, which is the smallest unit for the information flow, right? So the neurons are making this crosstalk, and what is exchanged here is the information, and the unit for the information flow is bit, which is 1/8 of the byte. Okay, and last but not least, what we have is the atom, and the atoms are making the molecules. Molecules are making the peptides or proteins, and many of the neural transmitters, many of the chemical materials in the synaptic space that they are responsible for the data exchange. They're responsible for the electroneurodynamics of two neural projections or two neurons to either make the action potential or not make it, are partly dependent on the neural transmitters. And we have different neural transmitters, we have dopamine, we have acetylcholine, we have epinephrine or adrenaline or noradrenaline, norepinephrine. Also, we can talk about some inhibitory neurotransmitters, including the GABA and glycine. And glutamate is one of the most important excitatory neural transmitters. So I just said that in brackets. Let's back up. So what we're talking about was the paradigm of NGBA. We need to have the well-formulated, well-structured number of neurons that are quite well connected. So the new connections, the strength of those connections, and the stability of the synapse, the synaptic strength, okay? And this is important. And also the vitality and health of the neurons, each of the neurons per se, is important. So these things are just referred to the N in our model, which stands for neuron. And to make the neuron vital and functional, we got to have the genetic material well placed and also some genes expressed and some other genes inhibited. And by that, what we would expect is that some proteins, some peptides are being generated, will be copied, will be produced within the cell after those genes have ignited the process of production of those microelements within the cytosol, within the cell. So we discussed about the neuron, we discussed about the gene. And what is that all about when we have the action potentials? It's an all or none phenomenon. Either we have the action potential, bam, or there is no action potential. There is no change in the electricity, membrane electricity or the membrane potential. But when the change reaches the threshold, then we have the firing. Then there is like 1 versus 0. So this is like an analogy when we're just sort of resembling the brain as a complex system like a computer, right? And how does a computer work? How does a computer work? The computer works in a way that we might be having a circuit formed or not formed. The electrical current is there or not there. So it's all or none context, 1 or 0. And when we talk about 1 or 0, then we can remind, it just rings the bell for what? For the computer science. And the computer science, the information technology talks about information, apparently. And bit is the smallest unit for the information. And last but not least, we have those neural transmitters. So some examples are there and how this model is going to have implications in some applications for neuroplasticity. And what we said before, neuroplasticity is something that we just continuously need it throughout our life. And when we learn something, when we control our emotions, when we pay attention to something, when we consolidate and recall the memories, also when we have the aptitude of our verbal skills, we're learning new languages, or in some cases that we go for more complex, executive functions or complex cognitive capacities, including like reasoning or planning and decision making and stuff like that. These are all the things that we are building upon the potentials of the brain to make neuroplasticity reality. Okay, so there are some examples for that. For instance, for the treatment of the traumatic brain injury, some research have been touching on the significance of using progesterone, for example, as a medication which is boosting neuroplasticity potential, and that's going to help the injured brain to get repaired. And early phase of the study showed that, well, that really works. Progesterone is really adding value, but in long run, it loses the efficacy. And we have the relapse, we have the deterioration of the symptoms in some instances. And why was that happening? That's because we're just approaching one pillar of those models. We're just approaching the atom, the molecule, the chemistry. So we just give the medication, and that's not the entire deal. So we are approaching one part, okay, but other parts like neuron and gene and information flow is not addressed enough. So that's why when we approach and address post-stroke cases or TBI, traumatic brain injury, we got to do some behavioral modifications, including the physical therapies and physical training, right? And then by some behavioral changes, we can expect some epigenetic effect on the gene expressions and modifications of the genes, so for the betterment of the functionality of the neural system. And the other example for the implications of neuroplasticity is when a young kid, when a newborn baby finds it really difficult to have the sense of depth in his or her visual capacity. So a very young baby does not have the full capacity of making the 3D or astrological vision. So the 3D vision and also the depth perception or depth prediction is not an easy task for a young kid. But as he receives more nurturing with the sensory inputs, visual inputs, by time, the brain is going to reform, restructure. The brain is rewiring up in order to develop new skill. And by the age of like 10, a kid would retain this capacity to predict the depth of something. So if you're going to take a long step to cross like a water canal, then you know, but by what force and what speed you're going to take that leap, not to fall into the water canal. So by that, yeah. So we do retain the capacity of doing the depth perception and depth prediction. Another example is the amputated limbs. So if someone has, God forbid, we got amputated limb, and someone is like a case of right hand amputation, and he does not anymore retain the chance of using the hand because the hand is not there. But does that mean the motor cortex for the movement of the right hand in the left hemisphere, in the motor strip in the left hemisphere, is not well wired up? But it takes time that these wiring in the left motor cortex responsible for the movement of the right hand, which is now amputed, and we have the like a loss of a limb. It takes time that this rewires or sets back. So in many cases that they have the amputees, amputed arms, and they started to have pains of like a limb which is not already there, but they have it's not only imagination, it's reprocessing and overprocessing of the sensory stimuli. It takes time and it takes pain and suffering that this phantom limb pain would fade away. This is because the neuroplasticity have taken place and has been there for a long period of time, years. And although I've lost my limb for the past 3 months, still this area feels the pain. Still the area processes the sensory information. Does that make sense? And also, we can just infer from this kind of discussion, this discussion that kind of fact of the matter is that for the chronic pain, still we're facing the phenomenon as a neuroplastic phenomenon, neuroplasticity. So the areas in the brain that they're responsible for coding the pain sensation, they are getting formed, they are wiring up. And by time, a chronic pain is something which refers to overprocessing of the pain-related inputs in the brain. And that all relates to neuroplasticity. When we're going to use neuromodulation and painkillers or other stuff, and then we're using, different modalities, including, alternative medicine, acupuncture, massage, or people will go for, like rubbing a specific, massage robs or stuff, and they are taking hot bath or whatever we take, as a measure to alleviate that pain. It's all about the neuroplasticity. It's all about the neuroplastic change. Okay, that was another example. And putting them all together in a nutshell, we know that the overall health and the holistic health of our being is kind of related to the neuroplastic change. So the change is what happens and stays permanent in the brain and also in the spinal cord. So we have the physical health. We need to do training. We need to, have good physical exercise, and by that, not only our bodily structures, including our musculoskeletal system, but our brain is going to, build up new structures, new connectivity networks. And so the physical health, also the mental health, when we have a good grasp on the strategies how to control our emotions, then by that, again, our brain is going to just use the capacity of wiring up in a whole new way to get a better control of our emotions. And also we have the cognitive health. So staying away from loss of cognitive capacities or cognitive decline by maintaining a good health and lifestyle habits, we would stay away from dementia, from neurodegenerative processes in the brain. So we are helping the brain stay vibrant, vigilant, and retaining a good stamina. So by this, the brain would retain the capacity of neuroplastic changes and neuroplastic maintenance, right? And also spiritual health, social health, and environmental health. These are all the things that they kind of refer to, the way that our brain is interacting with the surrounding, with the external world, and how the brain interacts with the body. So when we're just recompiling all those different dimensions of our holistic health, we can just, say that, yeah, in many instances, our health, our brain health, our mental health, and our motor or physical health substantially depends on neuroplastic change. And this neuroplastic changes might not only happen in the central nervous system, like what we agreed earlier, it happens in the peripheral nervous system. And by this, I'm going to close this discussion, and maybe if there's a chance for me later on in the following sessions, we'll be touching on further examples and further applications of neuroplasticity to improve the function and to take neuroplasticity into different applications in our functionality in the society. How neuroplasticity would help an athlete, a professional athlete. How neuroplasticity would help a university professor. How neuroplasticity would help a judge, a teacher, a business person, a leader, okay? And so on and so forth. And I hope that was kind of relating to your way of thinking, in a sense that neuroplasticity is critically salient. And we'll just catch up to talk more about this very important subject. And I'd like to appreciate your attention and hope we'll get a chance to meet up somewhere very soon. Appreciate it a lot and stay safe. Bye-bye.